next speaker, when I think about the influence that she has had on this movement here with CareerWise and across the country here, she also has a global influence. I first met her 8 years ago at the first summits, the institute that many of you have heard about. You'll hear a little bit more about what it has created. But I remember going to this institute in Switzerland, kind of on the moment's notice, thinking I'd only be there for 5 days of the 10, and ended up, I think, never leaving, certainly in spirit. Dr. Ursula Renold is what I would call an ignition source for this work, really across the world. When I first went there, as you'd expect, about the only pre-work I did, sorry to admit it, was reading the bio of the person that would be leading us. And so I'm going to share that, and then I'm going to share a short story about Ursula. First of all, you should know that she was the Secretary of Education for over 12 years in Switzerland, the equivalent to what we would have in our country as a Secretary of Education. She is clearly a distinguished scholar and leader in the field of education systems. As Professor of Education Systems at the esteemed Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, ETH, Zurich, Ursula brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to her role. She also serves as the chairperson of the summits, the Center on the Economics and Management of Education and Training and Systems, where she spearheads groundbreaking research and innovation in the field. Her influence extends far beyond academia. She has visited and consulted with over 30 countries around the world. As she holds several positions, prestigious positions globally. She serves as the chairman of the University Board of University of Applied Sciences and Arts, Northwestern Switzerland, and is a member of the Research Advisory Council of the German Economic Institute in Cologne. Her international engagements include being a member of the International Advisory Group at the Center on International Education Benchmarking in the United States. And I could go on. But what I will tell you is when I was in that classroom 8 years ago, and by the third day, listening to what the Swiss system has enabled for their entire population, where 70% of all of their young people will complete an apprenticeship, 30% will get a traditional degree. By the third day, I drank the Kool-Aid. And the Kool-Aid for me was, what can we do in our country that could ultimately be transformational? So on the third day, I asked Ursula in class, why do you bring people from all over the world to share your secret sauce? And Ursula gave me an answer that was simply, well, this is a research institution. By your work and your implementation, it can help advise and improve our model. And I heard that, and honestly in my head it was like, that didn't quite ring true in total to me. But by the 10th day and our final dinner over a glass of wine, I asked the question again. And this time she said, no, I didn't want you to think I was crazy that day in class. She said, but the truth is, I think the world is in trouble. And I think what we're doing here in Switzerland can help change the world. That gave me goosebumps then and now, because I believe fundamentally it is true. What she and Katie Caves, who was a doctoral student then, a professor now, has helped us do, and many communities around this country, is to help implement and build a very complex system. So with that, Ursula, my friend, my mentor, I continue to be your apprentice.
Thank you very much, Noel, for this very kind introduction, and welcome. Thank you for inviting me here to my favorite place, New York. I'm a jazz fan, and of course, I will enjoy the beauty of the city besides talking to you. And as Noel said, I have to tell you, I call now the lecture or the speech I have to give to you, Call for Action. And I invite you to think about develop state education system. Because what I see all over here in the United States, and by the way, I think if the United States can fix the case, produce role models, that will have an impact on the whole world. That's why I'm working to help you so that we have at least 1, 2, 3 states who can do it and can demonstrate it. This is my hope, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I love this wonderful National Youth Apprenticeship Summit, because without having interaction with each other, without learning from each other, we just continue to do what we know how to do it. We have to bring ourselves beyond the comfort zone, and that on a, I would say, monthly basis. This, at least, Katie, you confirm, is we try at our institute. It's not always easy to support, but if you look back, and we have 8-year experience with US cases, it's remarkable the achievement that all these states who have been involved have now done. So I like to come up with the big picture, because it's really a concern of mine. If we don't care about the young generation, what happens with us in the future? So it's a priority. Maybe people think, yeah, this is just the youth. Let's care about older people. They are important too. But the young generation, if something is going wrong in the age of 15 to 25, it's for the whole life. And it costs us a lot to fix this kind of problem. So I will go to describe what I call the big picture, and that means it is an explanation why we are here and why we have to care. Then you will see in the data, as Noel has said, Switzerland is a kind of a role model worldwide, has a wonderful system, it has a good equity, it basically serves for all people, but it was not the case forever, I have to say, and I will go into that, and this gives us hope, so we can change an education system. Then what makes a high-quality education system in a country based on international standards? So what I also see, and since I have 8-year experience with the Center on Economics and Management of Education and Training System, we see that for Americans, especially for Americans, it's extremely helpful if they see what problems other countries have. For example, developing countries. And those who have been there this year, one of the big showcase is the developing country Nepal. And if you think about that, Americans can learn from a developing country, Nepal. This is amazing, and that brings you beyond your comfort zone, because then you have to think, why could they fix problems which we haven't fixed so far? So, and that brings you to another layer. In a sense, it doesn't really matter whether you are a developed country or a developed, it's about you, it's about leaders. Okay, the fourth point is about employers, and it has to do with the big picture. Why are employers extremely important in the future in all education area, I mean beyond compulsory education? And I end up always with a call of action, because you should go home, hopefully you think about my speech, and then you should think about what are we doing tomorrow in our district, in our school, in our community to change. Because no one, if I ask you, do you think it's necessary to make changes? You will raise your hand and say yes. If I ask you, do you want to lead the change? Maybe not so many hands will go up. So it's extremely difficult to lead change, because no one wants to have change. Good, now the big picture. This is what I'm really concerned about, and the more we are doing research, the more we are observing what happens in this world, the more I'm scared about the future of the young generation. It has to do, of course, globalization. Everything You can see now it is accessible across all countries. Digital transformation in the employment system is an extreme fast trend. Individualization. Everybody wants to have their, tailor-made kind of education, but also a work situation. Digital transformation in the education system is a fast trend. Since the pandemic situation, I don't need to explain anything. You know what we mean. But you also know that this is not so easy because we are not really sure whether fully digitalized education is the best thing for everyone. And we divide the society because not all people do have the access to internet, to the digital tool they need. But what I now want to say, in the last 20 years, I would say, we observe more and more crises. Starting with the financial crisis in 2008, I always say we never know when the next is coming. We had COVID, which was extremely dangerous for the young generation, because 3-year COVID for a 15-year-old is not the same as 3-year COVID for a 60-year-old person. And then now we have the war, in the Ukraine war, producing an energy crisis, inflation, other aspects on the financial side. So we can go on. It's maybe not the last crisis, but these external shocks have an impact on the young generation. And I can tell you later on, I will show the data what I mean by that. So if we are interested in providing an education system that works for all, we basically have to monitor 3 main functions of a system. And the first one is we basically want to analyze whether our individuals, our youngsters, our learners are enabled to independently shape their future to their community, their future to the environment. So this is the dream of everyone. I call that individual control ability. Very difficult to measure, but this means no social security system necessary. They just manage their life. Well, this is a dream. It's not working. But we have to help them that they can guide themselves through their life. That would be the dream. The second one is the education system, of course, should provide the human capital necessary for the prosperity and the social development of a country. But it's not only about the quantity of labor, whether you have a job or not, it's about the quality. It's also about the quality. You want to have a decent job, a decent income, and not just an income where you almost are at risk of poverty, for example. The third one, and this is now bringing me then back to the lecture Katie just gave this week. It's all about social participation is ensured, and including the aspect of social cohesion. So this is the equity issue. Education must work for all, and in the 21st century, throughout the life. Because with all those changes, you cannot just say, okay, if you once have done your master, you are done. No, that was maybe in the past century the case, but not anymore now. So you and me, we have constantly retool ourselves to be up to date, to be employable, and to manage our life. So I will focus now on the second one, where we are very strong, and then in my second part, I go to the third one. This is an instrument we developed. It's called the Youth Labour Market Index, where you don't see it maybe, where we have some, oh, sorry, that was too fast, where we have 12 international comparable indicators. I don't go into the detail. You have them on the left side. It's about activity state, whether the young people in the age of 15 to 24 are active in the labor market. Then we have 5 conditions, working condition. What is the type of work? Are they working in a temporary contract? That is an insecure contract, 12 months, and then they have to look for a new one. This is an insecure relationship to the labor market. Involuntarily part-time workers, atypical working hours, in work at risk of poverty. So we have 5 qualitative indicator explaining how is the situation of a young generation in the country. Then, of course, the 15 to 24 are still in education, two indicator measuring whether they are in education or how big is the skills mismatch. That means they do education, but the labor market is not looking for what they have. And the last two are transition smoothness, how quickly can they move from education into the labor market. Now, unfortunately, it's still our dream to do it. We have only good data we have data for 170 countries, but not for all countries. We have all indicators. For the United States, we have about 5 only out of 12, because your Federal Office of Statistics decides to only send information for 5, and that means you are not comparable. We could do a proxy calculation if we get access to that data for you, because I think it would be worthwhile to see the 50 states, how they are related to each other. What you see here, the higher the score, so if the dot is at the outer bound of this spider web, then it's good. So I picked 2. The purple color line is Switzerland in 2010. The blue line is Switzerland in 2019, and then I have Spain, yellow, Italy, red, and Greece, light blue. So what you basically see is Switzerland is in almost all indicators on the top, but comparing 2010 with 2019, we were falling back in the last 10 years, even Switzerland, you know. But when we now see, for example, Spain is the yellow curve, which you see well. Unemployment rate is high because the score is lower, but then the working conditions are not really good. So even though they have use in the labor market, the conditions are not very good. And even more difficult it is for Italy. Italy, 30% youth unemployment rate, but out of them, those who can work, they don't have really good work. They're in a precarious situation. Now I have a slide for you aggregating all the 12 indicators into that index, and here you see what happens over time. So in 1991, you see we have not so many indicators. From 2005 onwards, we have 12 indicators for all country, and in 2020, the data set is not ready, so we have to wait until the end of the year. I expect a fall down because we have COVID. So in 2020, 2021, we expect that the data are going back because Italy, 1 year, no school. So, and that, of course, is something which you will see in the data. Now, what you can see here is what happens after the financial crisis. 2008, Italy, Spain, Greece, they were dramatically falling down. That means if a country has a full-time school approach in vocational education training, and this financial crisis was also a debt crisis, so the state could not invest in education, what are the youngsters doing? Nothing. And what you see, they could not recover from that moment until now. And we have the next crisis, the pandemic situation, which I expect that this curve will go down. Here we see it, at least for Spain, already a little bit, but this is definitely confirmed. And that means the more crises we have, where countries cannot recover from what happens, the more difficult it will be for that generation. And these are data from Europe, which is basically a continent where you could imagine that this situation is quite developed. Okay, because we don't have any data from the US, comparable data, I used the slide from my friend Noel. But I can tell you, I think I have seen one from Indiana State, which looks similar. So if 100 students start at high school, you lose them until they get a 4-year college degree. It ends up with about 24% who manage to get to that degree. That means 76% the system is not working for. So as an educator, as a former secretary, I have to say I would not accept that. So we have to take action. And that's why I'm saying call for action. So we cannot leave it as that, because that produces, from a systemic point of view, an inequitable system. Good. So I sum up as an intermediary summary. Our future is built on the educational foundation of all people on this earth. Megatrends and these exogenous shocks, they challenge education system dramatically and have worsened the situation of the youth. Even though we think we have more education, better education, more diverse education, yes, but not for all. And that's, in my view, not acceptable. We are challenged creating solutions that enable all people on this planet to have access to education throughout their lives. And I really stress throughout their lives, because those who haven't had that at their time should get the chance to re-enter the education system. Good. Why is now Switzerland? You may have seen here, Switzerland is, the blue line is constantly on the top, is stable over the crisis. The financial crisis haven't really affected Switzerland at that time. And the question is, of course, why? Now, Switzerland, 2 slides, very complex. This is the structure of the Swiss education system. You don't need to read that carefully. The only effect I want to show you is it's very complex, isn't it? So many boxes. On the compulsory school, it's 1 bar, but then you have different fields. These are typical 4 pathways offered for everyone. I would say for all gifted people. On the right side, vocational education, as Noel has mentioned, 70% of a youth cohort is doing that. And by the way, me too. You know why? I was just in the age of 15, I had enough of school. Scouts was important to me, becoming an adult, and I want to learn how money works. So my parents were very supportive. And now I'm on a top-ranked university as a professor. So it doesn't really mean that if you're adolescent, teenager, don't want to go to school, that this is not an intelligent and a gifted person. No, it's just about the adolescence phase. But if a system is not providing opportunity for just that phase in life, you can destroy a whole life. And that's why we are saying this is so important that you have this diversity of pathway in a system. Katie is always good, you know, to simplify slides when I think the complexity is necessary to understand. No, we have to simplify it. And the left side was done by her. It's a simplified Swiss system which you may digest, because what you see here is the academic path on the left side is what you have in all your states. It's across the countries, high school, academic, university that exist in all countries. But what doesn't exist is that on the right side. Vocational education, and PET stands for professional education and training. This is equivalent to academic education, but for those who are more practically gifted, more socially competent, and want to directly work in a workplace, no academic career. And what you see in between, this was then there I was as a secretary involved, we were saying, okay, now we have to bridge, you know, from wherever you enter in the Swiss system, you have to have the chance to move on across pathways, because only with that you can make vocational education or youth apprenticeship program attractive, if there is no dead end. So, and now this is also a slide done by Katie, because I think it's such a good slide, I allowed me to use that. You see here, now the same slide with the different pathways and programs. And on the right side, you see when Switzerland did invent those programs. So it's not the fact that Switzerland for 100 years has a permeable system. No. We had problems in the mid-90s where basically we had the meltdown on the apprenticeship market, and we had to analyze why is that happening? Yeah, because we had silos. and we had dead ends. So there was a vocational education training, the blue line, but there was no PET. So in 1978, we invented PET, then we invented, and that was the major breakthrough, why we are stable over time. In 1996, a vocational baccalaureate, and then the second type of university, the University of Applied Sciences. And now I can show you the results by outcome effects. Basically, here you see from 2004, where we had the last legislation change I was responsible for, to 2012, we improved the graduation rate in vocational education from about 65% to 71.6%. The general education is almost stable that means high school, from 21.7% to 23%. And what we could reduce are dropouts. So these are people, no upper secondary education level, from 13% to 5%. So it's all about, if you see that there is a problem in your country, you have to analyze and say what kind of new program we need, which is tailored to a certain target group which need that kind of program. And then, of course, think about bridging courses, how you can help them later on, if they are succeeding in that program, to climb up. Another very important outcome effect is increasing access and opportunity leads to better outcome of youth. So here you see a graphic that shows the probability of once in your life being unemployed by the highest degree. So here on the right side, the compulsory education, I mean, this is clear in Switzerland. People having only compulsory education have the highest risk to be once unemployed. But in the middle, the blue line, school-based VET and academic high school, is beyond the average, which is the red line. So they have also a higher risk if they only do that, high school. They most probably be once unemployed. So the green bars is now the dual VT, including the apprenticeship, is below the average. And if you go then for a professional education training, this is tertiary education, non-university degree, they have the best protection being once unemployed. And the university, we have also a distinction between University of Applied Sciences. Most of them has as a first education vocational, and that's why the probability is lower than the traditional university. Of course, what is important is that we always know what is the labor market looking for with regard to degree and competencies. This is a job market monitor data from the University of Zurich demonstrating a similar picture. So the yellow curve is demonstrating they analyzed job advertisements, University of Zurich, from 1950 up to now. And what you see is no one is looking for people having just compulsory education. This is the yellow curve. What you also see is dual VET, almost 50% of the job offers still ask for that. And I will explain you later why. But there is a black line saying upskilling. Switzerland is a knowledge society, so we need more than just upper secondary education. But this will not mean that this is just academic education. No, it's because during your work life, you just equip yourself with more special knowledge, and you can climb up the ladder later on. So this is basically PET and university. What struck me when I saw that picture the first time was the green and the red line. The green means each job advertisement are asking for work experience and for soft skills. Now, work experience means, and I saw some graphics from the United States, this is this type of, you have a 4-year college degree and then you start to do internships. And in the US, it's really sad. Some are not paid. And I have to say, as an educator, I would never accept that. As an economist, I say this is not efficient. I mean, if the program is not delivering what the labor market is looking for, then we have a problem to fix. So soft skills, on the one hand, the question, why is that becoming so important? I mean, soft skills, you know what this is. Team competence, you know, being resilient, anticipating, problem solving, and all that. And there is a saying that the digital transformation It's this fast trend of change in the labor market. Every month, a new chatbot or a new device or something new, which keeps us really up to date if we can keep going with that fast pace. The labor market is changing the qualification requirement much faster than education system can change the curriculum. And this now leads to a new relative shift of soft skills are becoming more important for companies than hard skills. I just listened to the podium here about Java programming language. That's exactly this hard skill. You know, who cares whether you can, what kind of program language you speak? It's more important that you are able to run a team, that you can work under pressure, that you can solve problems with all the tools you have. Nowadays, ChatGPT, Ask ChatGPT is doing a program for you. So it's more important your behavior. And this is a so-called transferable skill. And because that skill you can take with you from one job to the other, companies are saying this is becoming relatively more important to us. For schools, this is the worst message you can have, because how to train soft skills in a school setting? Well, you can do it to some extent, but your time is not enough, because it concerns your behavior, and behavior means twice a week you train an attitude or a soft skills over 9 months. So I don't need to go into the detail. The workplace is definitely the better place to learn this kind of soft skills. Good, now here the data. We were interested whether it works in Switzerland, whether we have the right skills, enough skills. Interestingly, here you see this is the development of the highest level of education of the entire population over time, including administration, healthcare. Healthcare in Switzerland is public financed, and education. And you see there is a diminution of vocational of people having as a highest degree vocational education training, and there's a growing trend on universities. But if we go into this university trend and have a clearer look at, you see it's not a traditional university. It's this University of Applied Sciences, where you have as a first requirement the dual vocational education training with apprenticeship. So this is for us the good development. We are saying, okay, academization happens in Switzerland, but in the right way. The next slide I can show you is now that was for me very interesting to see. Okay, now I have the same picture, but I excluded administration, education, and healthcare, so that I can show you what is the SME industry. Switzerland has a small and medium enterprise industry. 98% of companies are SMEs. What are they looking for? 50% of people having a dual vocational education only, this upper secondary. And then we have still a high percentage of people having just compulsory school. These are immigrants. Then we have PET. It's the second top rank. This is this professional education and training diploma, this alternative to college degree, and only about 8% university degrees. What does this tell us? We have to make a distinction between regulated labor market like healthcare, administration, the whole education industry, and the real production industry. So if in Switzerland everybody would have an academic degree for the SME, they could not do anything with them. So that's interesting. We have to really make the distinction between what is the labor market exactly looking for. I summarize, improving permeability in the formal education system has contributed significantly to the increase of outcomes. That's a hope for you. You can change it. You just have to, from time to time, go through and also try to change the legislation with the embeddedness of the new programs. Public and private labor market may have different requirements due to regulation. So this is what we have to look at and monitor. And in Switzerland, again, this 98% of SME, they only need about 18% of University of Applied Science graduates or traditional university graduates. What they, in order, and Switzerland is winning the quality competition and not the price competition on the world market, because we have high wages, we need high skills to produce the high quality. But for that, they need talents with dual education, a lot of work experience, and a lot of soft skills. And so that means you have to check your market in your state, what you are looking for, to see what is necessary. Now, coming back to this Swiss system and what does this mean with regard to international standards. First of all, the formal system, which I described with these boxes, are regulated by law. So in each country you find that. In your country it's mostly high school and then the academic program at the college system, some CTE programs. This is what you can find when you Google an education system. It's about the left side, the formal education. But the majority of you and me, and you don't believe it, we are informally trained. I hope that you learned something today. And this is informal learning. It's, well, we can discuss whether it's non-formal. I had an intention to structure the lecture in a way that you can learn something and hope that you tell to your parents, to your kids, to your partners what you have learned. This is my intention. And because then you get in this discussion which is necessary, that we start to rethink where we are and what we should do. A study from the Canadian labor force done by David Livington was analyzing in the Canadian labor market the competencies of the workforce. 66% is acquired informally. So if we don't account that knowledge of people over lifetime, we just don't use the skills they really have. So the informal learning is underestimated. We have to check how we can, embed that in an education system. Non-formal are these courses, micro-credential, apprenticeship type. These are all non-formal courses. These I call the free form of education. They have to be embedded and work together. Now, if we have an aging society, if we have now digital transformation, all these changes, one system here on the left side is just working as most countries work. We have a high school system, academic, but after 30 years, hopefully you have done your PhD, huh? The majority is through by then, and then what is your education system providing? If you, beyond the PhD, want to educate yourself with 45 years, with 50 years, in most of the countries, nothing there formally. You have micro-credentials, you have continuing education courses. If you would have a system that helps people to retool formally, because that has an impact on your salary, only formal program has really an impact on the salary. That's why we have to care about this alternative path. Good. Maybe Katie have shown you that already. We just published a new report on a ticket up and a ticket out, promoting and ensuring permeability in education system reform. And here is the typical system which is not providing a solution for everyone because it's a silo, an academic silo. While here on the other side you have all the boxes interlinked with each other. This is the complete permeable system. Switzerland is not there. I would not say Switzerland is the fully permeable system. I can tell you where you have weaknesses. But compared to other countries, we are, of course, much better. Now, if you set up a new program on the vocational route, but nothing more, it's a dead end. And young people don't like dead ends. They want to have a continuation. But if you would do, like all people doing the VET can go to a college, this is not true either. So there is a natural ability distribution on cognitive skills, and either you lower the standards at university level so that everybody can go into, or you have an alternative route on the top side of the VT program, which are more dedicated to people who are practically gifted and want to work with SME and in the industry. Good. This is a slide which I call this international standard. All countries normally, if they deliver data, refer to this international standard classification of education with their 8 levels from early childhood to the doctoral, or, and you can see, or equivalent. And this is underestimated in a lot of countries. International standard is not just PhD, master, bachelor. It's always or equivalent. And this equivalent is exactly for those who never will go to a college degree because of the cognitive skills, or because they don't want, but the alternative is not there, and this is what we have to fix. So what we recommend, and unfortunately so far no US state has developed a so-called state qualification framework, is with formal system of education levels describing the learning outcomes. This is now worldwide in trend. And most of the country who want to work on permeability first develop that instrument. Because with that instrument, with the learning outcomes, with the descriptors, with the competence language, it's easier later on to recognize prior learnings. If you don't have an instrument like that, good luck. It's almost impossible to find a solution to recognize the prior learning. Good. The NQF, again, is nothing else than this level system. ISCET and NQF in most of the country have these 8 levels. Some do NQF on 13 level. That doesn't really matter. But at the end, the standard international is the ISCET classification. Now, if you have that standard, it's so easy to bridge or to recognize non-formal and informal learning. For developing country, for your equity problem, for those who have never had the chance, to go through a whole formal education path, but they have a lot of competencies, there are rules and procedure how to acknowledge that. But if you don't have a level system, it's almost impossible to do it. So the idea is for both sides to develop a procedure where you can recognize those competencies and you identify the gaps, and for that then you have the training, maybe the college system who can offer courses. Employers. First of all, 8 years ago I was saying to Noel, you can choose between the left side or the right side. The left side means employers are consumers of skills, and then they complain if the school system is not delivering what they want. Or employer can act as producer and consumers of skills. And then it's becoming more complex because you need an ecosystem and rules how to work together. Nowadays, you see, employer must become producer and consumer. I don't give you the chance because it's too late. You have seen the digital transformation is the mega trend who produces chaos in education system because we are too slow in education system with changing our curricula. So the only way to cope with that is embrace the business sector and co-produce the skills. Now, if you have then this ecosystem, an ecosystem is more complex, obviously. You have to understand the language of employers. The rationality of employers is not the same as for educators. So they need translators who understand what company is really looking for. They look for profit. This is just natural, not for education purposes. And it's not about social corporate responsibility. That is, of course, important, but here we talk about substantial engagement of employer. And for that, you need to have a governance of players, which we call the ecosystem, where industry organization or industry clusters with their companies are bought in, where you have the government, depending on your state, pedagogical institute, districts, co-providers. And if the 3 partners are working together well, that has an impact on your, we call that curriculum value chain, on your program for a recognized diploma. Now, a little bit the theory on, it's not so difficult to understand that, but why are companies interested in being partner in Switzerland? I mean, Switzerland, I always say, for company, it's just a business case. They call the training an investment, and they want to have a return on investment, and that's why behind they know why they do it. And we simplify that by explaining you what matters. Of course, you have costs. The costs are growing maybe over time, but then, and this is underestimated, if you have a very good syllabus, curriculum, I just heard about how you train people and whether you have a good syllabus, internal syllabus or not. That matters a lot. If you have a good plan, how you educate them in the company, at the beginning you have this investment period where you really have to train, they make failures, and it takes a little bit of time depending on the sector, manufacturing a little bit more than retail or banking. And then you have the return period where you get the benefit you are looking for. And the idea is, at the end, it's a black zero, or let's say a balanced cost-benefit analysis. Of course, companies would like to have a higher return if possible. What goes into those calculations? We do this kind of calculation for programs. Cost is easy: apprentice salary, trainer salary, machine tools. And on the benefit side, it's a little bit more complex to calculate. It's the number of hours unskilled work. It's the skilled work multiplied with the productivity, because over time they know how to do it. They become I was in a bank serving a client in my first year, Of course, there was an observer, supervisor, checking whether I'm doing that correctly, but it was productive, maybe not as a fully trained person, but you can do it depending on occupation very quickly. And if they stay afterwards with you, you have reduced hiring costs. Now we can play with that chart. For example, if you decrease the apprenticeship wage, of course, the break-even point will change, and you may have a quicker benefit. So one profit determinant is the apprenticeship wage. If you go too high, that's the other way around. So then you may not get to that wonderful return on investment. Oh, the heading is here a little bit strange. If you now increase classroom share, this is unions are fighting for, we need more general education, this and that, and language and ICT and so on. That is dangerous, because more time at school means less time in the company, and that affects this return rate too. Share of unproductive work. In Germany, they have not the same results as we have, because they do cleaning up shops, serving coffees, which is not a productive work in that sense, and you can regulate that in a syllabus, of course, if this is allowed or not. Share of late classroom. The students are more productive in the end of the education, so if you then put more classroom load at the end, that's not good either. So we know a lot of variable where you can play with. The last one I have with you is this decreasing of the program duration. I learned a lot as a registered apprenticeship, sometimes 3 months, 6 months. That's definitely not profitable for companies. It's too short, to train someone on a multi-skill competence level. So we have to figure out for each occupation what is the rational duration. So at the end, the company gets at least a small net benefit. So this is the summary for the Swiss system. You see ROI in 3-year programs per year is 10%. And for the 4-year program, which is mostly manufacturing, this very complex and ambitious occupation, it's 7.25%. So this is a cool case. But the investment, the gross costs, is almost 100,000 per year. So that's why I'm saying it's not corporate social responsibility. It's really an investment. And that's for all of you who are struggling with convincing companies to train. This is this hen and egg problem. You have to tell first you 100,000 per year, and then later you see the benefit. And this is exactly the problem which most pilot projects do have, until they see, the companies are seeing, okay, now we see the benefit. Good. So I'm ending. To sum up, an institutional ecosystem is necessary for something like that. It's not that in the future each thing, like the registered apprenticeship, where you have a relation, one company to the DOL. No, you should create an ecosystem to use economics of scales. Because if you work together, you can share all the documents, you can share knowledge, and that helps to scale the program. Co-production of skills requires a willingness to collaborate, and the willingness to collaborate means banks in the US sit together on a table and discuss whether they share the internal syllabus together. I have observed one discussion where I said, no, I don't sit on a table with my competitor. They said, but just for the purpose of education, you know. They should work later on in your bank. Discretion and all this wonderful attitude, they have to learn while they are trained. I could say that because I was working on a bank and I went through the same, you know. Why not? What they think, the hell we are when we are 15-year-old, you know. I was always saying, I was so proud to be an apprentice. I go home and say, I served several clients today. And this is for the self-esteem important, but also that we take these young people serious. They want to become an adult, so we have to help them to tell what is discretion. Discretion. Educational pathway that achieve an ROI will lead to a sustained participation, and only, I can tell you, employers, only if it's an ROI or a black zero, this will be sustainable. Otherwise, sooner or later, they step out. Good. I come to the conclusion, call for actions. This is what my hope is for you, and we help you to support on that journey. Create a permeable formal education system in every state that provides educational pathways for all types of talent and that they are accessible throughout life. That would be the dream for you. Define entry and exit requirement for formal education pathway and provide bridging courses for those with gaps. There's always a solution there, you know, if they have not exactly the entry condition to help them. Develop competence-based qualification framework at the state level to improve the quality of program, and use the qualification framework to recognize prior learnings. So again, there's a huge potential in the society, and you can leverage that human capital if you recognize it, and that will help then also for filling all the empty spots in the labor market and give more recognition to the people. Establish education pathway in cooperation with business intermediary. So the bank, not with each single bank or single manufacturer, with the club of companies from the same occupation to just use economic scales. Co-create pathways with company and develop cost-benefit approach that encourage company to participate to its return on investment. So you see here, it's a little bit an economic language, but if educators and economists work together so that they can understand why we need that and that they can help to figure out all the variables, how we set them, then it's a win-win situation for everyone. So I sum up with a quote I've learned from my friend Noel, and I think it's such a good quote, which matters for all of us. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. From Margaret Mead, and you are these kind of committed people here who should join and make that significant change with the help of CareerWise, PAYA, New America, with us from the summits. I have a dream, as always. I mentioned that before, that we have a global education reform movement for the better of the education for all. So please join that initiative. I consider you as reform leaders which join our movement, world movement, because together we are strong. If you have to work in your single corner, it's hard, the everyday struggling. But if you can believe and count on there is a world movement of reform leaders who help me if things are getting difficult, then I'm sure that you are in the business in 10 years when I'm back to give my next speak. Thank you very much for listening.